Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Muted. Oh my gosh, guys. All right, CPI here this morning. Now, normally I'd go through all the instruments and stuff, but not a whole lot has happened since yesterday. So I think that we will wait and do that after the CPI news. Some people saying that the CPI is already like priced incorrectly. I am not so sure about that one. Looking for a reading on core CPI of spot 3% month over month. If we get higher than that, the market's going to freak out. But I think that the chances of us having a really big surprise number are a little bit less at this time. So let's see what goes on. I think that if, you know, it's likely to be in line, and if it is, when we go into the numbers, there might be a little bit of shuffling around because of that, because I'm going to bet you that, it'll be in line, but the numbers are still going to kind of say that super core is still not coming down as quickly as we would like. So that's basically where we're at. Brad says, can I predict the future bonds are going to tank? Well, I tell you what, if the number is hotter than expected, bonds are definitely going to tank, because I think that we've had a pretty decent rise over the past month or so. So if there was hotter than anticipated inflation, that would be a really big surprise to the markets. And you could see like a 2% down day on the S&P 500. A lot of put option volume? Really? Well, yeah, and that's where I'm saying that, like, it seems to me like they are protecting themselves against the downside. So, but I still think that it's going to come in line. I don't think that that they're making a prediction so much as they're just trying to protect themselves just in case, because the just in case scenario would be really bad for them, right? Because the market is way overextended up here. All right, here we go. Okay, they're down. Core is spot 4. Ooh. Wowzer. Okay, so across the board, downside. Treasury's coming back really far, though. Okay, so headline was spot 4 versus spot 4, but core was spot 4 versus spot 3. So gonna take the risk here. I have to say, the degree to which the treasuries retraced that was a little deep and surprising to me. I mean, like, it instantly went down, but man, they roared back there pretty quick. So I find that very, very curious. Okay, now they're starting to come back down. Gonna reset the volume there. So far, what I see is, like lots of shorts and covering it. So maybe the market really did already have it priced. I don't know. Like, because this looks like profit taking to me. Wow. Okay, now busting the highs off of this news. A little bit of a stop run there, I think. Kind of makes my stomach churn. Is it just the dollar? I don't know. Well, the dollar is moving pretty wildly. As you see, dollar came back to break even and now is pushing up with vengeance. Did the ES close at 2? Wow. Well, this is pretty wild. I have not seen a news release like this one in a while, where I would say pretty clear outcome from the news that was bad, but they were somehow able to come back and do a stop out. Back in the day, that would happen all the time, though, right? It used to be that they'd always say, like, ignore the first 2 moves. So that is curious. So I'm watching the volumes in the treasuries, like across the board. So one thing I do see is steepening across the board. Okay, which to me would suggest the yields should rise a little bit, but it's not really doing that, is it? And the S&P 500 is like ignoring it and pushing up. I'm not sure what to make of that. Inflation was hotter than expected. Basically, I'm getting a real ride here. The dollar is just... So right now, I'm just hearing the news squawk mention that the traders still see June as the most likely start for cuts. I am seeing the liquidity in the micros come back a little bit. But again, the volume that I've seen so far has been maybe slightly to the buy side, which again suggests to me like profit taking. So maybe that you just have to wait, 10, 15 minutes for that kind of flow to dissipate before the flows short kind of take over. See, I see the squawk saying traders still see June as most likely start of Fed rate cuts after inflation data. And I'm going to bet that is likely to hold, but it's probably too early to be making a call like that. Yeah. If ES closes with a 10-point candle with 20 points wick on a 5-minute, that would be, yeah, it's pretty wild. The S&P reaction there is pretty wild, right? They did bust overnight highs, though. Like what you saw there in the S&P 500 is a classic, like, ignore the news and go stop everybody out sort of a play. It was a pretty wild. I haven't seen something like that in a while. But it is curious to me, are we going, because I can remember a time period where it felt like that the way the market moved off of every non-farms and CPI made no sense, And more lately, it seems like things have calmed down, but that they've kind of been a little bit more sensible. But now it's going back to crazy. See, they were making the downside there a little bit, and it almost immediately gets pushed back again as the dollar continues to fall here. So gold is higher. So I wonder, something that I've been kind of on the lookout for. I don't think that I have enough evidence to suggest that this is what is happening based on the market data. But one theory I would have is if you are concerned about, debasing the monetary supply, then you would expect the dollar to get weaker, but yields to not respond, because basically you think that the Federal Reserve is going to ignore it. So then you would want to buy golds, but not buy or sell the treasuries. And that is what is happening at the moment, is gold is doing better than the treasuries, and the dollar is falling. Yeah, CPI was core CPI was spot 4 versus an expected spot 3, so slightly hotter than anticipated. But the market appears to be fairly well hedged for it so far, and we've seen quite a bit of congested action. So they're kind of lining up to bust those highs again, but it's looking a little bit heavier now. I'm still seeing buy flows come into the 5-year though. That's probably from the spread, right? They're steepening it. They're steepening it. So if they come in and buy the 5-year and then they're going to turn around and start selling the 30-year super hard. And the question is just like, how far do they move it if they're moving the 5-year, right? Yeah, assuming that they try and push the spread further, I'd say it already moved quite a bit. It is a little heavy there at 21.5, but I don't think that that'd be enough to stop them from busting the highs again. You got your stop run in your real account? Yeah. On a move like that, because I think one of the ideas that you might have on trading news is like, oh, it goes one way, just stop into it, and then you have a stop. But when they make such a big move on both sides of it, you know, you're extremely likely to just get stopped out on that. It's kind of luck of the draw if it hits your target first, right? A little bit of iceberging there at 21 when they tried to push it down. Signs of liquidity hole. I feel like it would maybe be too easy. Okay, that time they took it down and there was no iceberg, but it's still kind of going around. The dollar's moving. Dollar looks like it has pivoted and is maybe moving back up. There they are lined up now. That does not look good. Actually, that was kind of a little bit of a disappointing new high so far. Okay, now I'm seeing some stacks. Which, I don't know if it's that suspicious in this situation, but I am a little bit suspicious of them. And of course, as they kind of settled back down, they disappeared. They traded 25. Free. Yeah, seller was like, I'll take that. Buyer's like, okay, deal. But another 3. Now pulls. So we do have a 10-year note auction today at 11. Something I should have mentioned. Seems kind of important. Well, so far I'm really disappointed in this trade because that's the first one I've taken in a while, and I was really hoping it would be a good one. But it looks like it's turned out to be like the worst case scenario. Like this is one that really should have gone well for me, and then it just didn't, right? It's like that outlier that just goes terribly. It must be just because I took the trade, right? It's my fault. I'm sorry. There's definitely like a large buy meta order at work. There's people fighting it. But there's definitely a large buy meta order at work. I guess some people trying, betting that like even though it was hot, it wasn't big enough. Well, here's Zero Hedge's story on it. Let's read. After January's surprised upside shift, expectations have been adjusted over the last month for another sizable month-over-month. Month-over-month move in headline CPI, but that was not enough as the spot for month-over-month rise in the headline, as expected, highest since August, lifted CPI year-over-year up to 3.2, hotter than the 3.1 expected. CPI rose spot 4% more month-over-month and 3.8 year-over-year. Goods deflation continues but has flattened out, while services inflation remains stubbornly high at 5.2% year-over-year. And one step deeper, the so-called supercore core CPI services ex-shelter index soared spot 5 month-over-month to 4.5% year-over-year, the hottest since May 2023. In other words, it was really bad. Finally, we note that consumer prices have not fallen in a single month since Biden's term began, which leaves overall prices up 19% since Bidenomics was unleashed, and prices have never been more expensive. Thus, an average of 5.6 per annum, more than triple the 1.9 average per annum rise in price during President Trump's term. So about that shrinkflation, did companies only get greedy when Biden took office? But it gets worse. Real wage growth has lagged significantly for the average Joe in America. Food costs are up over 21% since Biden's term began, but non-supervisory wages are up only 18%. So, pretty short synopsis from Zero Hedge. But I'm sure that here soon we will get, more full synopsis from across the market and the market analysts. Okay, so it does look like we are getting a little bit of a turn here. The dollar is coming back towards unchanged. I would say gold is holding up there pretty well. Did you see the fight? I did. You know what? That story actually makes me a little bit uneasy, because I think the only thing that is really unique about it was that it was a black girl attacking a white girl. I mean, I've definitely seen like school fight videos at a similar level that nobody in the media cared about. So when I see Zero Hedge posting it, I kind of feel like that's race baiting. But it was an awful thing, and I hope that the girl is charged, of course. I don't know. In a situation like this, I would often see people being like, well, I live in the area and this is what's been going on, sort of a thing. But I haven't seen that. So I don't think that we really have any insight into why that fight was happening. So I'm going to clear this downside again. Like they're falling down a little bit, but it seems like the shorts are a little bit reluctant. I don't know, guys. I kind of still think that this news was bad, and so I think that what the market is suggesting to me is that even though the number was higher than the consensus estimate, that the traders were positioned for it and took profits. But I still think that like an interest rate below 4.1 is too low given the circumstances. Does that make the S&P 500 a good short here at 52.15? I don't have the balls to put a trade on in ES and find out, but I guess we will see. Seeing an iceberg at 21 that they're able to get through in the 10-year treasury. Take it short like me. Okay, there's a 3K at 20.5, so it looks like selling is coming through. Well, I'm still in my micro 10-year. I'm still along for the ride. So it does look like we're starting to get some downside movement and selling. The 10-year treasury actually, wow. I'm just looking over at the cumulative delta. You see how quickly the cumulative delta turned back negative for the 10-year treasury? So they are selling the 10-year hard. I think I'm surprised I'm not seeing it over here. I would expect to see it over here, but it is doing kind of what I was saying, right? They bought the 5-year and then they turn around and they sell the 30. And they kind of use their impact on the 5-year going the wrong direction to push it more so that they get a better price on their 30. Because what side is going to make you money in this instance? If it's going to be a bull steep or a bear steepener rather, so a bear steepener would mean that the treasuries overall move down, but that the yield curve steepens. Okay, so steepen means buy 5, sell 30, but down means that you're going to make money on the selling side, right? So they care more about getting the good price on the 30-year. So they're using this to get them good price on this, and then hopefully what they make on this side, you know, makes up for what they had to pay to move it up. It's not the first time that I've seen this sort of a play. Okay, they are back below the open as well, so. I got 18 listed on here as like a seller average position, so. The dollar is really coming back. Look at that. And is gold coming back as well? Gold is coming back as well. So it still looks like that the dollar is dominating everything. Which I don't know why. I mean, always when it's the currencies that are dominating things, I find it more difficult to predict what is going to happen in the treasuries. But, you know, every time that it happens, I'm kind of like, well, why are we trading anything else if if everything is just going to move correlated to the dollar? You know? Okay, so another little fall there. And hey, look, the S&P 500 is coming back. So I think that if I had taken that 15, where should I manage things? Maybe take some profits at 52 and then let the rest ride? Because if I'm looking to take sequential profits, you got 5,200 as a round number, and then there was a lot that traded at 51.98. So and it hasn't been too long. So that would be a pretty good spot to try and get fills. I wasn't sure that it was going to go further. I'm kind of hoping that it's going to go a lot further, though. Well, I'm hoping that the treasuries will go a lot further. I don't know how far the S&P 500 will go. When you look at it on a 1-minute chart, look at that curve. That's an unusually smooth curve. There's an unusually smooth curve in the S&P 500. And we're about to see 16 here in the 10-year, maybe. A little bit more iceberging at 16.5 again. Clears it, but isn't able to keep it offer. So they finding support right at the buyer side. Oh no, actually that's the sell side stop zone. Interesting. So if we're able to get below, stay below 17, then basically all of the market makers that were market making long are still underwater. So even though, you know, price came back up and everything, I would say that the balance of power doesn't look very good for the buyers at the moment. That's really surprising to me that after all of that, that my buyer stop out zone is basically 16.5. But they went right to it and bounced on it, so. I'm going to point that out to our friends on Discord. Well, I guess if we're really hoping for things to turn short, then the next question would be, can they break the lows again? Well, that would be a really difficult poll, but it could happen. Okay, there we go. There's 16.
Block sell.
You're going to add to your short, huh? Leverage up, huh? Okay, there was a big sell there in the treasury. Alligator says they sure are in trouble. It does. I mean, look at the cumulative delta here in the 10-year. That's pretty... Whew. Okay, so we're coming back now down. We're below the what do we call this? The value area low at 16. And we're kind of coming to the bottom end of the volume profile distribution as well. Before, price kind of had difficulty getting below 14.5, 14-ish area. So that move right there is technically a lower low. Oh, they didn't actually tick 14. Perhaps someone playing defense. The volume in the... Okay, so we are getting what I anticipated, though, on this side, which is the 30-year sold hard. So it is indeed a bear steepener. Well, despite my trade now being in profit, I still feel awfully uneasy and nervous. Let's come back to Zero Hedge, see if they've got anything new. In this market, it's the upside you need to hedge. Not any news stories, really. Let's see here. Eric Wallerstein asks, how hot is inflation? Well, it depends on where you live. The Northeast, it's up 2.4%. In New York City, it's up 2.9%. In the South, it's up 3.7%, and Miami, it's up 4.9%. Wowzer. I don't feel like I'm being greedy. It's just being rational, letting it run. Yeah, well, you know, when it comes to like your profit-taking strategy and all of that, you know, if we don't really know how far it's going to go, you know, that makes it pretty hard to kind of make estimates about where you would take profits. Now, in this situation, I would expect there to be like a 40 to 60K net sell in contracts. And so far, we're at about 30,000 contracts. So at 30,000 contracts, especially if you've got like multiple contracts on, I think that a profit taking in that general area makes a little bit of sense. But I also think, based on my numbers and everything, that we could probably see a considerable more amount of selling. The S&P 500, I would think would at least come back to 5,200. Look at the dollar, though. So the dollar looks set to bust the high that it formed just after the news. So the dollar did a real head fake, but is in the end moving up. Yeah, when you start to see the dollar bid up, then you start to see the selling pressure and the treasuries come back. Bloomberg says primaries show candidates can win on TikTok but lose at the polls. I would read that if I still had my Bloomberg digital subscription. Yeah, like 19 points, to 20 points on one contract is really good, right? For sure. Forex Live tweets, the dollar is all over the place after a hot CPI reading. Maybe we can come in there. It was another big iceberg they busted through at 12. The US dollar has made 3 separate moves after today's US inflation report showed prices rising faster than anticipated. The first move was a 40 to 60 pip jump in the dollar as core CPI rose 4% compared to 3% in February. However, that move lasted only seconds and was quickly erased and then more. But more recently, the dollar is beginning to climb again on a 1-minute Euro USD chart. They've got a picture of it. The bond market isn't giving many clues as it's played the same games as the Forex futures, or as the currencies, with US 2-year yields jumping, reversing, and now tracking higher again. 201, please. Why 201? Well, I guess I guess 5,200 is too easy. Makes too much sense. Makes too much sense, so we'll put it one point ahead of sure. If it's 201, it is. We're rooting for you, my man. You know what I should start doing? I should start calling you all boss. Like, I don't like being called boss because I'm not the boss. If I was running a fund, if I start running a fund, then you should all call me boss. But otherwise, I could call you boss. That's the respectable white person thing to do. Let's call everybody else boss. Okay. So the dollar was not quite able to make that new high. It's pulling back a little bit. I'm not really seeing a shift in the volumes in the treasuries. It does look like they're kind of settling here and getting comfortable with these prices. I would love to see like a 415 maybe in yield. You've got on a one tick miss by a lot. Yeah, well, you know, I find it so weird how often it will do things like that to you. Like I'm telling you, the market's not random. It's not random. It's like if we were playing a game of rock, paper, scissors, but it was me against all of you, and you all picked whether you were going to be rock, paper, scissors before I decided which one to do, right? In that situation, it would be random, but most of you would lose. Even though it's random. Like, how does that work, right? It's because I can see what you're going to do and change my decision based on that. That's how the game is played. Okay, here's the dollar maybe trying to push back again. The Japanese yen is falling along with the treasuries. I am feeling a lot less nervous. I should probably try to stay vigilant here. It's when things start going well and I relax that, you know, things sometimes fall apart. That's also where I will take the profit too early. I am a little tempted, you know, I should have taken 2 contracts and then I could have. When it started coming back and I was at break even, I kind of thought about adding a second contract, but I decided not to. I was like, for this first one. The swing low in the treasuries looks vulnerable, but they're not going for it yet. Okay, there's a downtick. The 5-year seems to be coming back with a vengeance, so it looks like maybe the spread is coming back in a little bit. Perhaps profit taking in the spreads. I don't know, maybe in the 5-year, but not in the 30. Now I'm trying to think about if this does well and I'm able to just kind of let this ride. Well, so we've got that low down at 0.5 below us. That's awfully far still. If we were to get below that, I could see today ending up being a trend day in the treasuries. That would be a pretty wild move. I don't know if I would want to keep it past our time frame though. In fact, I think, well, no, that I think they moved that to yesterday. They did have a meeting. Not on the screen, but there is ES plus Treasury on top, on bottom CL plus micro yield futures. What are you talking about, Andre? Look at that. They were coming down there, and then it few ticks up real quick. So I think the dollar wants it. I think the dollar is going to go for it here. Oh, someone asked which one was the NQ. Well, yeah, I don't have NQ up here. The top left is the S&P 500. Got the chart and then the DOM next to it. No. Wow, look at that. You know, I was getting a little nervous, and then 3-4 quick down ticks. The dollar not really even moving on that. That was the treasuries all on their own. And there the S&P 500 did tick our 201 and our 200. 5,200. This area right here is very illiquid. This whole spot looks like a liquidity hole to me. I'm not seeing it necessarily in the latent liquidity yet, like how much they put up and how much they're able to tick back and forth, but they've slipped through this now probably 3 times. So and probably because, again, the buy market makers, their like average position was all the way up at like 18.5. Well, seller average position was 18, and then the buyer stop out zone was at 16, and we're well below that. So despite that big rise up, the buyers didn't get a whole lot of fills apparently. That weren't able to take the profits on it for some reason. I can't explain why my model shows what it does, but it shows what it does. I don't know. Uzi watches it a lot. Maybe he has some thoughts, but I don't understand why that dotted line isn't a lot lower, because for it to go down and then come all the way back up like that, you would think that these buyers would have made a lot of profit and that number would be way far away, but it's not. Now this one is the treasuries pushing and selling back towards the bottom end of that range without the dollar. It's 10.5. Anybody? There you go. Big order at 10. Let's see here. Uzi sold a whole lot more contracts on this swing down than the news swing down at low prices and below the news swing low. sold the whole lot more contracts on this swing down than the news swing down at a price isn't below the, yeah. No, this move down, it has been a lot more volume, hasn't it? In fact, we are now to, let's see here, we're negative 138, and the high around there was around 100. So we're now down to about 40K. But like I said, a situation like this, you could easily see 60, 70, and then like over the day, hundreds of thousands. It makes me think there's a big buyer on the bid, not necessarily someone short taking profits. Oh, yeah? Wait, so you mean like that the buying that we did see in the treasuries was like a buyer taking on a new position of some sort? I just don't think that would really make sense given the circumstances. You know, why would anybody do that? You're right, though, that there are some things about the volume that are a little sketchy. Yeah, my explanation, though, my theory is that the reason it looks like that is because it was a bear steepener, right? That it was them pushing the 5-year up on their, you know, so basically, if you have to take one long and one short, you can push this one up so that the rest of them fall, and that way you get a better price on your second leg when you sell it. So, like, you want to maximize your impact on the first leg and minimize your impact on the second leg so that you get the best price possible on the second leg. And then after you've taken your position, then you can let it fall. I think that's what they're doing. I don't know if for sure that there would be a real advantage in doing it that way. But okay, well, we did fall out of that area quite well. Man, this turn from the highs is 30 ticks. 2 more and it will be 32 ticks. That is a really, really big swing. Yeah, she's still going, so lol, yeah. This is a really big swing. Do you think that they can bust the lows, though? It's still, so when I see a big move, when I see a move like this, where it's like, and then it comes back, and then he comes down, usually it does something like this. So for it to go like that, seems less likely to me, but I don't know if there's really any, you know, efficacy in saying that, you know what I mean? I keep trying to remind myself to like, don't try and particularize the general, right? If I come in and I say, okay, here's a certain setup and it moves down 60% of the time off of that setup, that doesn't mean that I can look at the current situation and say, okay, here's that pattern. And I also see this pattern and this pattern and this pattern, and they all suggest short. So that means it's more likely to go down. That's an incorrect usage of the statistics. The only way that you make money is if you take every one of those trades. You know, like you have this outlay, you take that trade every time. Otherwise, the you know, outlay doesn't come out correct. So for me to try and use that information to try and predict what it's going to do in this one situation, not very effective. But it's very tempting just because it was such a strong, you know, such a strong low and everything else. I mean, everybody's going to be watching it. If they bust the 05, I'm sure that there's going to be some spectacular stop runs. But no, I think the thing that's going to help us the most in this situation is watching the volume, and we had about 40,000 contracts net sell, and the pace of selling has kind of slowed down. Like it started to slow down, and then we had a little slip lower, And now that we've had this slip lower, they really seem to be building out some sort of a base here. TLT open should... Oh, yeah. That's a good point. That's a very good point. Is that we got about 8 minutes till the open, and we usually get more movement around that. Let's see here. Shorting today was a no-brainer for me. I'm very surprised that I got stop called on my first try at 52.10, but the second try at 52.20 was solid. I just was we might as well try 25. But yeah, I don't know, man. Those are scary trades, though. I have definitely been in situations where I held that and it just kept going up, you know? I have definitely had that happen to me many, many times. There's like what should happen and what does happen. And like I think that those are like high probability trades. Like I think that I could look at the number and the expectation and predict what it's going to do probably 70% of the time. But that 30% when it doesn't do what it's supposed to are really rough. Okay. So the dollar's still kind of being like, I don't know if we can break that high. We think that this price is fine. I think... Well, so I'm tempted to take it off here, but I think I'm going to wait for the S&P 500 to open. I mean, worst case, I lose another 5 points on my stop, and you can't take these trades with scalp or shitty risk mentality. Well, I mean, you have to have a decent amount of capital to play with in these situations anyways, right? Like, there's no way I would have been able to pull this off with the full treasury. Because what happened to me was, the way that my thinking went was, okay, I saw it go down. It retraced really, really hard. So that to me is like, okay, low liquidity, it's coming back. Let's see where they start absorbing and so forth. And so I saw it there on the offer, and that's where I took it. And it wasn't a terrible like entry, but in the end, it was just a little blip in the larger storm, right? So then it went up quite a bit more, and I weathered that storm, right? So if I had been doing it over here, you know, somewhere around 17, right? That would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So like 12 to 15 ticks against me in the 10-year treasury. That's a decent amount, right? But in the micro, it's only 25 bucks. I don't know. It's at the moment, it's kind of looking like the pre-S&P 500 move is for things to kind of retrace a little bit. Well, you could have a stop at 20, but that's where I'm like, that's where I'm saying that, like, yeah, it's easier to basically the wider you can make your stop, the better you're going to do, generally speaking. Assuming that you actually have an edge. Like any back test that you do The larger you set the stop, generally, the better you'll do. That's just like a general rule. To have a really tight stop, you have to have a really, really good signal. Like, I see a lot of retail traders coming in and thinking, oh, okay, I can take this setup and there's some sort of outlay for it. But if it's like 2%, like, man, 2% is going to be like you take 1,000 trades and the amount that you're going to make after 1,000 trades is going to be a little lackluster, right? If you're going to really day trade, I think you really want to look for really high probability setups and setups that are going to really run for you. That better execution is crucial. Yeah. I've missed a lot of good trades, but I do find it's better to err on the cautious side. That 5 years is still looking a little twitchy. Like they tick down 2 ticks at a time there. Didn't take much volume for it to happen. So like the bids are just evaporate below. $6A tick sale. Well, so I went for this really long time where like I was doing pretty good. But basically what would happen is I would make 10 ticks on ZN, and then it would like retrace the whole thing. And I would be looking for it to go further than 10 ticks, and I couldn't get it to do it. And it was really weird because it was like we went over several months of data, and there were a number of times where my MFE was 10, but then I scratched the trade was like really discouraging. Okay, well, we did get another pivot confirmed here. So that pullback in ZN was about 7 ticks, which is about on par for the pullback in a down move of this size. So we'll see if they continue further or if they're able to like hold it here. But here's the open now. Decent amount of trade on the open, but nothing too crazy. And pretty equal buying versus selling as well. I kind of thought that they would try and sell it like right out the gate. So it would be a good time for the power bar, right? It's pretty even still. Have you tried Sierra charts, Dom? It feels much more laggy compared to what I see for Jigsaw with the same setups. So I haven't used Sierra charts too much, but I have used it, and I would be really surprised to be seeing lag. So you would have to go into why you think that you're seeing lag, right? Like, do you have another platform open and you can see the difference between the two DOMs? Like, how do you determine that? Because what you might be seeing is maybe more like your update interval is set to be higher or something like that. Yeah, your data refresh. Okay, so the sellers are starting to win out a little bit in ZN, in the SPOOs, but it's very close. Okay, there's the treasuries just got slammed down like 3 or 4 ticks. Wow. Okay, is the dollar gonna go for it now? Octavia says TLT dumping. Oh, I really want to see. I really want to see stop outs at 05. That would make me so. That would just make my whole year. If there was a stop run and the treasuries got below 05. Just thinking about it, man. That was okay, but that was a pretty strong impulse short in the treasuries, a little bit too much. Jacob, where have you been, my man? This has been a while. It's okay. Stream has been boring for a while. You know. Today has been good, though. This has been, I mean, it's not over yet. Let's not count our chickens before they hatch, but this has been one of the most dramatic rides I've had in ever. That's why I'm starting to cheerlead for 05. Because now I'm like, okay, like after everything is said and done, you know, breaking 05 wouldn't be crazy compared to everything else that's happened, right? I've got my E-Trade platform open and TLT isn't terrible right now. Uzi, they guard 95 even option hedging. But there's 415 in yield. I can see there's a little bit of a sell side iceberg at 08 half as well. So after getting slammed down there, there's some reloading on the offer. And it does look like, so the balance of the volume in ES is still pretty close, but the sellers are starting to win out. And the dollar started to move a little bit higher there. Let's resize that so that we can kind of see it a little bit better. The high was 103.12. ES about to dump again. Well, they're going to be testing those downside levels and like the previous days. What is that? Previous day's close. The treasury moved up a tick though. There's probably a little bit of a pocket here behind them. Like this whole thing right here is kind of like didn't expect 10 points in 30 seconds. Okay, yeah, well, they crossed that line. Next line is 51.91, and then we start to get into then things start to get fun, right? Ha. Now we're having fun, aren't we? Yeah. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. On the day, the S&P 500 is still unchanged. I would expect, given the news that we had, the S&P 500 to have a mildly down day. So something like 0.5% to 1%, right? If it had been really bad, then we'd be looking at like a 2% down day, but I don't think that it was that bad. If we had gotten like a 0.5 or the headline was much higher than it was, then that'd be a different story. Short at 52.15 is looking godly now. Yes, it is. And see, I can vouch for you on that one because you told us right when it got in. You ain't like some of these other people that come in and are like, "Oh, I've got this winner. It's going really good. I got it here," and we're like some crazy price that like there's no way anybody took it. No, you said it like right when it happened, and we were kind of like, "Well, we'll see." And I was kind of the same thing. I was like, "Okay, so it's the short at 52.15." And on it going back to 5,200, I don't have the guts to take it, but we'll see what happens. Oh, that was a good trade, man. Good trade. Let's see here. I'd like to hear your thoughts on my sizing comment. I'm not sure what can you repost it, or you didn't post a link or anything, did you? So the only comments I see from you is CPI. How have you been? CPI day, decided to pop in, hope all is well. I have 60 points worth of, well, if you have multiple contracts, I would hope that you've at least taken some sequential profits, right? This spot right here around like 51.90 is probably a good profit taking zone of sorts. I'm not saying that it's going to stop. It's just like that's going to be a fairly key level that some people are going to be watching. So you can see that was the previous days. Actually, I don't know what it is. I don't know why that is showing up there. Oh, it was the previous day's close. Previous day's close and the highs, yeah. Trades that run are rare and are hard to catch. With the power of leverage, assuming risk parameters are in place, sizing up with smaller targets seems more reasonable. Sizing up with smaller targets seems more reasonable. Dude, is it going to do it? Is it going to do it? Well, so I don't know if I can answer it on the detail that you're talking about, but here's the one thing that I can say, and this is very, very important, probably one of the most important things for you to know once you've got all of the basics down, right? Is that the way that this works is there's a distribution, right? And what you want to do is you want to limit these left tails and you want to let these right tails run. So when you have like set targets and things like that, basically what we end up doing is we kind of let these loser ones ride a little bit and we cut the profits short instead. So when you've got a good winner, you really want to let it run. Now that's really hard with day trading because in day trading there is kind of a limit, okay? Swing trading, this is why like swing trading has real advantages to it, and most of these guys that were like doing momentum strategies, they were trading on like daily basis and so forth, because when they got one to run and they could hold it for months, they made so much money compared to all of the little losers that they made trying to start it out that it just didn't even compare. In other words, they have something that like most of the time they lose a little bit of money, but then they have this such a large tail that they make tons of money on the tail. Okay, man. I don't know. It's a little wild to me that when it starts selling, how quickly it does it. And I can remember similar moves in the last 6 months, actually, that ended up being like real benders, and we were like, what the heck is going on? Were they on the short side? I don't know. I'm not against letting winners run, but let's be real here. We'll break even just trading one lot, so we need size to offset the losers. Yeah, well, so I do think that, you know, when you've got a really good spot, right? And you've already made a bit of profit on it, I think it does make sense if you really think this is something that's going to run to add size to it, for sure. And then you can kind of take a little bit of sequential profits. Like, something that we might do in a situation like this, because I see it eyeing that 05, taking it short here, and then if I see the stop run, taking it off immediately after the stop run, right? Because you want to maximize that right tail. So how you maximize the right tail and minimize the left tail is something that's up to you, but with the way that we're trading and everything, that's kind of a necessary part of the trade. A lot of retail traders, they just say, I'm going to take 4 ticks target, 4 ticks stop. Or more likely, they're going to take 4 ticks stop and a 2-tick target or something like that, right? But you have to take a lot of trades for the probabilities on that sort of a setup to really work out for you, right? If you can let them ride, you only need to catch a few moves like that, right? Well, the dollar came right to that high and I've shied away from it again. And let's see here, 06 to 08 half, 7-tick pullback again. So here again, the liquidity all the way through here is a little shaky. So the treasuries are most likely to, like, you know, start rotating around a spot. I think 09 would be a good spot for them to do it. But, like, here's the thing. If that's what's really going to happen, I don't necessarily have to be too anxious about it. Like, it's a little bit easier to try and let it ride if you know that, like, worst case scenario, it just kind of goes dead there, and then if it's been dead for an hour, then you take it off, sort of a thing, right? My most recent Google search is where to get Wall Street drugs in Vancouver. What? So you know what I've started doing, and I know at some point this is going to come back and bite me in the butt, but for now it seems to be working, is my toddlers, they really, really want the iPad. Like the younger one in particular, just like, if you take the iPad away, he just has a conniption fit. And we limit it, right? So basically they only get the iPad late in the afternoon when mom needs to do things like cook dinner and stuff like that, right? So but sometimes they'll have it like when it's bedtime, and I'm like, what are you doing? They're never going to fall asleep with their eyes glued to that, because it keeps the blue light keeps them awake, right? And they always have to have the brightness, max brightness, right? So I've taken to calling it crack, essentially, or cocaine. Well, I'll come into the room and I'm like, why are they both on cocaine? What? I got trail stopped at 86 on the renters. Okay. Well, the S&P 500 is selling down again. But that's kind of like remember that 91 was basically like the close. So it's only a little bit negative in the S&P 500 so far. But we are now to everything is down on the day, and the biggest loser is silver. So that kind of kills our theory about gold, where we're like, well, if they're going to debase the money supply and everything, then you would want to buy gold, and then the treasuries don't move. But the treasuries sold, and so gold and silver sold. And did Bitcoin sell? Bitcoin kind of sold too, but not as strongly as the other things. Well, given like the dynamics that you have with interest rates and Bitcoins, I would think that it should be a hard sell here in Bitcoin, but I doubt that that's the way that it actually goes on. You think that it's going to hit 75? Yeah, that'd be wild. When I was trading the E-mini, making 10 points was hard. And I think that the biggest ones that I ever caught were like 20 points. So it's a little crazy. Like, but that kind of puts things into perspective, that like them being at 52.20 was really a little crazy, wasn't it? It was a little crazy. I find it weird and crazy how people try to scam so many young traders by showing 25K in data offers. So I was thinking about this morning, actually, that exact thing, because there's this lady on TikTok that is showing up in my feed a lot, because I watch one of the videos and the algorithm picks up on it, and the algorithm is pushing her for whatever reason. And her whole complaint was basically that you can't like hold a Series 7 license and work for a firm and educate people on social media. And so the people that you have trying to educate you on social media don't really have any industry experience and don't really know what they're talking about. Now, I kind of have some issues with some of that, because the stuff that they tell you on the Series 7 is not really pertinent to your average person, right? And they don't teach you the things that, actually move the markets and so forth. So you get a lot of institutional people that, they do the job and they have no clue what's going on, right? The industry is also very, very broad. Okay. I'm not sure if it's really the large bank, the people that work for the large bank that you want to listen to. I mean, they have a certain narrow focus. Like for us, if you're going to be trading for retail traders, I would be much more interested in talking to somebody that runs a hedge fund, for instance, or a high frequency trading firm. That's going to be more pertinent experience to us, right? But she was kind of saying like they should change the regulatory regime and everything so that these people can talk and stuff. The other issue is that it's not really the government that doesn't want you to talk. It's the banks themselves don't want you to talk, really. Right. But she was arguing that like there should be a different certification so that, unless you've taken this test and whatnot, you shouldn't be online trying to educate people on finance. Right. Which I also think is kind of silly, because again, like what's on the test is not going to be the stuff that's actually going to be useful to people. So what's the solution? Well, I do see one problem, and a problem that we've solved very, very well in the future space. And that is people making crazy claims about how much money they've made from the markets, right? And so the way that it works is if you're going to start a pool or something, you have to show 5 years of data or the lifetime of the pool, and you have to show the performance of all of your pools as well. So you can't do this sort of a thing where it's like you have one that does really, really well and you have one that does terrible, and then you just show them the one that did really, really well, and that sort of stuff, right? They basically they've caught all of those tricks and prevented people from doing it. And if that was, if the FTC made that there was a rule that if you made a performance claim that you have to show the last 5 years worth of all of your trading or the full history. If you don't have 5 years, then I think that would kill it. I don't think that influencers would be out here making big extravagant claims anymore, because they would be like, well, I don't have 5 years, and it's a liability because, you know, I'll have it for a certain point, and then I have to continue to show it forever after that. And then when it turns negative, then I'm finished, right? Like, yeah, right now I have a year's worth of profits. It's great. But then when I blow the account, everybody will abandon me at that point, right? Then they will probably switch to kind of the way that I do it, which is prefer not to talk about the performance. Like, if I'm doing well, I don't necessarily say anything. I don't try and make a big deal out of it. I might today I might have you know, like how to let winners ride or something like that, right? But then prop firms came around, and anyone I see on YouTube making money on prop firms is straight up one of the biggest red flags now, due to the fact that, as how can I trust when they can keep it sim forever? Yeah, you're right. I really dislike how things have shifted with the prop firms. You realize that if I had kept, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe this is just like a crazy thing in my head. But if I had kept making content about prop firms, and like my content was primarily centered around in reviewing different prop firms and strategies to pass prop firms, and that was the focus, I would probably be a huge YouTube channel now. I would probably be making enough money. Well, I don't know if I'd be making enough money to replace my current day job, but you know, I'd be making enough money to live off of it potentially. But I came in and I didn't like what was happening, and I wanted out, you know. This is funny. I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me in my life, where, you know, I decide that I don't want to do it with anything, with something, and then it goes off. This is why I'm so confident that Bitcoin is going to continue to rise, right? Because that's the way it always goes, is like, I've decided I'm not going to touch it. That means it's going to just keep rallying. Okay, so the E-mini did have a pretty good pullback. I'd say the Treasuries had a pretty good pullback too. Like they've come back to a decent liquidity hole area. So, I don't know. I could try holding it until the end of my session here. I could try holding it to the auction, or I could try holding it all day. But holding it till the auction or holding it all day sounds really stressful to me, so I don't think I'm going to do that. What I hate about it is it makes trading look easy and lures innocent and unaware people in with them not aware that they are 100% going to lose money for 2 to 4 years at least. Yeah. Well, but that's the thing about it, though, is like when you have like that tremendous amount of success, it kind of is easy, you know? Like the reason that it's hard is that usually that doesn't happen to you, right? So it will always be the case that when you look at somebody and they made money, it will appear easy. Making money is easy. It's the not losing money part that's hard. It's just like, you know, how do you get girls? Number 1, be attractive. Number 2, don't be unattractive. It's the same thing in trading. Be profitable. Don't be unprofitable. There's been a bit of clicking back and forth there at 08. Like the Treasury's kind of threatening to turn back down into this area again, but the offer not really solidifying up for it to happen. That's a pretty good sign for a liquidity hole, right? Oh wow, the E-mini's coming back pretty strongly too. And without a huge change in the dollar. Curious. I do kind of wonder, like, okay, so if I was going to take a big trade in TLT, you know, I would have done it right there. 2 waves right at the open. I kind of feel like that now that it's been about, this happened at 8:40. So now that it's been 20 minutes, I don't think that we're going to get another really huge flush. But you could continue to just see steady pressure in the treasuries. But that makes this area in general okay for profit taking, right? See, there's the 08 again, but it just doesn't hold an offer. And the treasuries themselves are kind of mixed. The 5-year is down a tick, the 30 years up a tick. Iceberging on 08. Granted, this range here is a pretty decent range. This is a 10-tick range. The bottom. Well, there's the dollar shifted up again. I've been pretty engaged in watching this for the whole 90 minutes since we've been going. It sure does look like it's flattening out now, though, and that I can relax. Because at this point, it's basically like me haggling over 5 or 10 ticks. Man, is the S&P 500 going to get above the open again, huh? Yeah, POC shifted the whole time. Yeah, it's definitely like a liquidity hole, and the point of control moved down to here, and yeah. And you can see that it's been stuck at 08 half and 08 now for several minutes. Definitely a liquidity hole there. Bid iceberg? I want to see if they clear it. And the dollar's kind of starting to play some games here, huh? Okay. 5K iceberg cleared. Oh, there was probably the same iceberg that was at 08. So let's say that it was 8K because there was 3K at 08, right? 3K at 08, 5K at 08 half. It was probably an 8K iceberg. They cleared it. I haven't seen a whole lot of orders come in through here in the micros. Well, there was one contract at 4145. Nick says you're done now. Well, always, market is vengeful, right? It will try and take its stuff back from you for sure. So I'm seeing like the liquidity hole here at this place, but that inside offer is not acting like that anymore. And they tried to sweep it and they immediately added more. Not that the bid is pulling or anything. Maybe looking a little selly over in the 5-year though. That kind of looks to me like when I look at the 5-year, that kind of looks to me like they want to bring the spread back in a little bit. So now I'm starting to see some shuffling and activity in like what should be a really tight zone. So I think that happens when retail traders kind of get excited and think that something's going to happen. Volatility squeeze sort of a thing, but usually the end result of that is that it reverts back into the hole. You see that the 30-year ticked up a little bit though. So it is the spread mean reverting. I don't know, guys. I mean, we got an hour left. I was getting really excited, though, about the possibility of a stop run at 05, and now I'm kind of feeling like it's not going to happen. I am seeing maybe the volumes in the 10-year maybe start to move to the downside, but there's been some strong buying in the 30. Perhaps the 30 is profit taking. Because it's a substantial portion of that huge sell that we had. Ouch. So a little bit of a stop run higher there. Maybe from the 30-year dragging them up. I don't know. I thought that they were going to tick back into my 14.5, and then all of a sudden they moved down 5 ticks. Okay. So I took 30 bucks. I'd see I haggled over the $5. I didn't get it. It's okay. But that move kind of scared me a little bit. The way that one works is either there's going to be another big buy coming through and something's up, or that starts another downtrend. But I don't think that I should be seeing that in this situation, right? Like, my thinking is, well, let's do it on the actual chart, shall we? Let's analyze what my thinking was. Big down move. I went short somewhere around here. I held out through all of this and then held down through this. So now what does this look like? Square root law, right? So I should see it settle and just, you know, so if I get 5 ticks up all of the sudden, that's not right. Well, I think that it should come back into this and just continue doing this. Okay, but I really shouldn't be seeing that. So that kind of was like, well, I don't know if 5 ticks is worth it. So I get out of it. Oh, it looks like I would have gotten it. It looks like I would have gotten filled if I had just waited a minute. That's okay. It makes me a little nervous because there's still some shifty stuff going on. I don't think that I really know how that's going to go. But I could have made the $5. That's okay. If I had held on to it, I think I'd still be getting out at 14.5 though. Or why do I say 14.5? I don't know. Trying to read interest rate prices is kind of tough. 4145 was the spot that I wanted. So if I was getting it again, I think I'd take it off. Because I still anticipate they're going to be stuck at 08.5. So I took that trade and held it through the head fake. Do you think that I should be proud that I held it through the head fake or ashamed? Right? What if it had kept going up? What if? Dude, if it, like, as soon as I got out there, it comes down and they do take out the 05, that'll make me so mad. That'll make me so mad. But let's just remember that it was 14 that I took it off at. Okay. So there was another 10 bucks in it already. But it shouldn't be moving that much. It shouldn't. That's a little unusual. It's a little unusual. There's another one. I mean, I knew. Here's the thing. Okay, if you got a big downtrend and then all of a sudden you get like a really strong impulse up like that, that goes one of two ways. It either reverses because it's a strong meta order going the other way. So I'm very, very aware of those because that's what'll kill your profits on those runners, right? Or it's just a little blip and they will continue to trend down. At the moment, they're looking like it's a little blip and they're going to continue to trend down. Granted, I think that we should be still pretty tight. Like, it should be pretty difficult for them to get too far away from that 08. But it was just kind of like a little blip and they fell back. So I shouldn't say, I would say it's a blip and it fell back. I shouldn't be saying like, oh, it's going to continue trending down. I don't know that. I think that the trend down scenario is probably less likely still. It'll be hard for them to get below 05. It'll be spectacular if they do it, though. Well, it is still at 08, so I think a part of it also was that the 30-year was getting a little out of hand, and that's why it slipped back like that. And tick back up at 08. Okay, I think we're okay. I was getting a little nervous that I had screwed it up, but I'm back to it. It looks like I was just haggling over $5, and there's a lot of randomness to it, and I didn't get it in that instance. I think I should have taken it off a little bit earlier, but I could have waited and I would have gotten it as well. So minus one. Minus 5 points to me. Gryffindor minus 5 points for getting scared out of your trade too early, but it's okay. It's only 5. All we got to do is catch the golden snitch, and we'll still win the cup. And I don't feel like this analogy is hitting for you guys, is it? Probably not a ton of Harry Potter fans in my chat. I would have let it stop, enter again, it feels good, or reevaluating. Well, the thing in this one is that I expect, again, like the way that I do this is like, I expect it to come in waves like this, right? And we are basically right here, right? So if nothing else happens, it will just stay here until the auction. The auction that might kill him. Although I don't know, with the way that auctions are going, it would not surprise me in the least bit to see the auction be a bullish thing. Okay. But it all comes down to, is there going to be another meta order? Well, now that we've gone through this time period, the chances of there being a meta order long are very low, because they want to do it. They want to do their meta order somewhere back over here where they're going to have the strongest impact, right? Basically like this kind of like post meta order. This is like when the selling pressure slows down. So if the selling pressure slows down and you reverse it with buying pressure, it will go a lot further, and you get something like this where it goes above where you started. Okay. But we didn't get that. we're getting the post meta order mean reversion period. So this one's probably unlikely. But is somebody going to come in and sell another wave? Well, we had a net 40K sell. The market seems to be thinking, like the S&P 500 in particular, that even though inflation is hotter than anticipated, that it's okay and that the rally can continue in spite of that. And the treasuries don't look too panicked by it. So I think 40 to 50,000 is about appropriate for this trade. So I don't think that I'm betting on another move lower. I was kind of more haggling over this range. There's no place for perfection in trading. Just ask what you did right with the trade and what you did wrong. Well, so the more interesting question... The more interesting question with this trade is what is this? Holy crap. Should I have not gone in this and waited longer? Because I think if I had waited longer, that when I saw this stop run right here, I might have tried the hero trade then. And then it really would have been a monster. Then it would have been a $50, $60 winner, right? So I'm wondering to myself if I screwed that one up. Well, I don't know. I don't think there was anything wrong with taking it right there. I don't think there was anything wrong with taking it there. There's no way that I ever would have guessed that it would do this. And in order for me to have like waited and then seen that stop run and gotten it right here, I would have needed to have thought that it was going to completely retrace and bust up higher, right? Definitely. So, yeah, no way I could have guessed that one, but maybe I should have though. Is like the thing is like, well, I did kind of suspect that the market was going short into this, so like that was what the volume was yesterday was a sell, so. Maybe you'll see a stronger than usual pullback because of profit taking off of that trade. It seems like that's what did happen. I think in the future, because that's like the second or third time now where it's been like that. Like, I thought that the market was front running something and then it happened. And so it did weird things. I think that I need to be more aware of that next time. As I think my takeaway today. So next time I come in and I say, well, this is what the expectation is. This is what I think the number is, but this is also like what I think the street is thinking, because it seems like the street is going short. Then I need to be more concerned about the profit taking on it. Looks like the seller is about to finish for in the treasury. Oh, I think that the selling pressure is done. I mean, look at it. Look at it on the bigger time frame, right? It's dead, right? Large meta order sell. Post meta order mean reversion period. It could rise. I mean, with no other pressure here, it could start rising, but the market should now be in like a neutral position. Like the liquidity should be recovered, etc., etc. It should be just as easy for them to move around here as it should be around here. So it could meander, but except for that, like probably nobody's going to be out there taking the trade. Not until the auction. I shouldn't feel too bad because I when I came in, I did shore my account up again recently, and I intended to have it at 1,000, and it was a little bit below that. So today that puts us above us. Right. So now I can start losing it all. And that's usually how it goes too, right? Is like I'll do really well like just after I funded, or put more in. Let's say that was like 2 years in that account though. I did really good with that account, considering that I've only been trading one lots with it and everything. It's really good. Probably would still, well, I don't think I'd be up, but I'd be close to break even. Little under, if it weren't for like fees and all that sort of stuff. What do we got? 40 minutes left? It's funny that though, like when I'm in a trade, people stick around longer. I think it's like not you regulars that are here every day, but the people that are just kind of browsing around. They're definitely more interested if I'm hanging on to something, right? Actually, what time did I take it off at? 8:06. Not bad. No real change. It's kind of curious to me to see like the viewership rise until 7 o'clock and then just slowly kind of even out after that. I wonder what's with that. Okay, a further tick up. Well, I tell you what, if I hadn't gotten out of that, I sure hope that I would have gotten the $40. Because now I'd be looking at, actually, no, because I got out at 14. So now I'd be looking at only taking 25. You're here for the music? Well, you don't need to, I shouldn't be telling you this, but you don't have to watch my stream to listen to the music because the playlist that we are using is Streambeats. You can go to streambeats.com and listen to it anytime you want and make Harris Heller millions of dollars. I hope, if we consider like for the last, because we kind of started this like using the music shortly after COVID, right? So I would say 3 years listening to his music 3 hours a day. I think we've made Harris a decent amount of money. So you're welcome. You're welcome, Harris, if you're listening. It's pretty thick now. Was it like that before? Because I'm like noticing that some of these are 3,500, if not 4,000. But I am kind of starting to see some like maybe somebody's taking a trade here that like none of this matters. Like look at the S&P, they're right back at highs. Can you believe that? Okay, so Minik, good job for catching like the 52.15 all the way down here and then stopping out. And I think you tried one trade that didn't really work out, but then you stopped, right? But if there's anybody out there that caught that downside and then reversed and caught it all the way back up, you are a legend. If you caught that. Holy crap. The S&P 500 is in a bubble. I'm sorry, but that sort of stuff, that is bubble behavior. That is so like one of the things that can really tell you like where we're at in the cycle is how the market reacts to the news. And when the market ignores bad news, right? That's like we're in a bubble, right? A bubble can go on for a long time. So I'm not saying sell. Really what I'm saying is be careful shorting this thing because Man. Buy the dip. I tell you what, if there's a strategy, if there's a day trading strategy that works, it's trade spoos and just buy the dip. You're welcome. I would think catching a reversal would be borderline market. Well, if you were doing market making, I don't think that you would let it ride all the way through that whole swing, though. I just can't imagine. I'm sure that there's somebody out there that did it. You know what? I take back my previous comment. I said if you sold that and then flipped and caught the whole win as well, that you're a legend. You're not a legend. You're lucky. You're lucky. Quit while you're ahead because you're just lucky. Because that is a wild move. So let's come back over here and take a look at the charts now. I said, volume profile and stuff doesn't really matter. Okay, well, so here it is in the treasuries. So first of all, remember that this was non-farms. This thing right here, non-farms. So we moved well below non-farms. I think that there's still plenty of downside. Like, let's see here. Last CPI was over here. Okay. This was last CPI. Last CPI was not that different from this CPI too. So for us to just come back to where we were at CPI kind of seems like a little bit, you see what I mean? So like from a valuation perspective, I think that 4.1 is probably too high. So we should probably be more somewhere in the range of like this. It's probably where I think we should be from a valuations perspective. But anyways, that's where we're at in the 10-year Treasury S&P 500. Well, okay, so that it was a really crazy move up and everything, but just remember that last Friday we were as high as 52.60, so we're still quite a bit off of the highs. Wouldn't surprise me to see a little bit more mean reversion come in, because that is just a crazy uptrend, right? Oil's still within the range. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. All right, still within this range right here. Maybe the lower end of the range rather than the higher end of the range now. Still kind of like China not really picking up, and I'll show you that in a second. So gold and silver taking it on the nose here. But you know what? Gold and silver still look great. So I don't know. Maybe that's just the buy the dip opportunity for some gold and silver. Copper got hit, but they're doing okay. Oh, that's weird. So copper is a really good indication of like what growth in China is doing, but oil is also. So it's curious to me. They don't seem to be matching up. Japanese yen rose quite a bit on that news. Fell quite a bit on that news, and the dollar rose. That brings the dollar back to 103. But 103 is still pretty weak. I mean, that's still pretty weak relative to what it's been, right? So, despite essentially, and here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin having a little bit of volatility, but probably not nearly as much volatility as would be justified. So you can see that the market did not like the CPI news, but that ultimately they're saying that, everything is still on track and that they're okay with it. That the CPI report does not preclude the Federal Reserve from being able to cut interest rates in June, essentially. I hate it when my nose gets dry and super, super itchy. When did Donald Trump tweet there is a lot you can do in terms of cutting Social Security and Medicare? I think that is a misstatement about what Donald Trump wants to do. Because I've seen many, many quotes from him basically saying that we're not going to change anything about Medicare and blah, 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 blah. Let's see. You know what's funny with this Social Security and Medicare debate is like when they're talking about like making changes to it. I'm gonna bet you that any changes that would be made would be like, you know, like slowly come into effect. So anybody that's retiring right now would not be affected, right? It's gonna be people like me that would be really upset about having our Social Security and Medicare cut. That's who I think you would want to be concerned about. Oh, when was this? Okay, this is a new comment. Former President Trump on Monday suggested he was open to making cuts to Social Security and Medicare after opposing touching the entitlement programs and attacking his GOP presidential primary rivals over the issue. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm surprised that he'd be saying stuff. Trump was asked in an interview whether he had changed his outlook on how to handle entitlement programs. He says there's a lot of you can do. There's a tremendous amount of things. You know what? I think that they are kind of misconstruing that. Trump campaign spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt later told CNN that Trump was clearly talking about cutting waste, not entitlements. Yeah. That was a pretty major gaffe by Donald Trump, I would argue. That's a pretty major gaffe. And it could, I think that it's probably small cookies in the larger picture of things, but it's not good. It does not help him. Well, let's kind of bounce around here and look at what kind of news we've got to look at. Make sure that we have a good understanding of where things are at the last 30 minutes that we've got here. Wow, Connecticut church begins armed neighborhood patrols? What? Why the elites are terrified of talking about radical Islam? Because there are a lot of really rich Islamics out there. My lights flickered on and off there. That must be the elites telling me that I'm getting out of line. And then no, the elites will know who will react with destruction and violence, so it's who they protect. Maybe. I think that I don't know, man. I think when I look at like how does the Democrat Party as a whole react to things like that, I find it really hard to believe that, you know, they are engineering a reaction from the whole party as a whole in a certain direction because they think that violence and destruction and so forth is actually going to like help them in the long run or something like that. Like, it's kind of I think that a lot of what the Democrat Party, like, especially when you're talking about like why does their base react the way that they do, it's because they basically feel traumatized from their teenage years and never got over it. We've talked about this before, right? But I really think that it's a larger factor in how these people think than we realize. Is like in school, they wanted to go and have sex with their boyfriend, and their parents said no, and they never got over it. That's the thing. And what else? The other big thing that was happening when these people were in high school and whatnot was like the whole 9/11 thing, right? So the far left people, you know, they saw the United States go into Afghanistan, and then they saw them go into Iraq, and it was definitely the case with Iraq. And basically everybody that was pro-war just absolutely hated it, right? So when everything kind of became anti, you know, it went from we never really talk about it to radical Islam was the only thing that people talked about. And that always bothered the left. And so the left does what it does. It just kind of does a knee-jerk counter reaction. And so I think that for the most part, the reason the left treats Islam the way that it does is because of that. Because otherwise it doesn't make much sense, because Islam is basically opposed to every value that the left holds dear, right? A big group of angry Hamas supporters stop traffic. No one arrests them. Someone shows up and starts screaming and pushing at them. They'll get arrested, because if they're not arrested, the angry Hamas supporters might. Well, that's, yeah, okay. So like on a micro scale, that is what tends to happen at protests, right? Is that if there's like a big protest and then there's a really small group of counter protesters, that if the counter protesters step out of line at all, they shut that down really quick, because they know that they don't want to piss off the larger crowd. Yeah. And then on the other side of that, they also treat left-wing protesters different from right-wing protesters, because it's almost always happening in a city where left-wing people are in charge. I see a lot of evidence of that. As an example, that court case where they said, oh, you arrested the far-right protesters, but you didn't arrest the Antifa people, so it's not fair. And they threw out all those convictions. But I think I see what you're saying, though, when you say it reminds me a lot of how punishment worked in school. It's like if you're being bullied, you get bullied and bullied and bullied and nobody does anything. But then when you knock out the bully, all of a sudden there's a problem and you're both in trouble. Right? Like, the worst thing that you can do is win the fight, right? Like, doesn't matter who started it often. But I think that's more a recent thing, right? Like, there hasn't been widespread pro-Islamic protests until the Israel thing, right? Until October. So you're talking about a dynamic that's only been going on for, man, how long has it been? October, November, December, January, February, March. 6 months. It's been 6 months. Wow. I'm still triggered by that, man. Every day that I come in and I read some new story about how Biden is trying to pressure Bibi into doing this and doing that, and I'm just like, dude, just leave him alone and let him do his thing. Can you imagine if after 9/11, okay, and George Bush identifies that it was that it was Afghanistan, the people in, what are they called? The Taliban. George Bush finds out it's the Taliban that did the attack, and so we go into Afghanistan, and then there was some other really powerful world leader. There's nobody that's a comparison, but let's just say that there was some really powerful world leader, and the whole time they're using every kind of diplomatic effort that they can to like undermine the mission that you're trying to accomplish in Afghanistan. Right? Like, there are some times where even if you disagree with it, that you know what the situation is and how they're going to react, that it's better that you just kind of step aside, you know? And I think that this is one of them. Let Israel sort out its own problem the way that it chooses to do, because you're not going to make the situation better by trying to pressure them one way or the other. By the way, Seth, your time, what about it? Is it time for me to get going soon? Or did my my clock is wrong and who knows, we're all good. Daylight savings time. Yeah, cities paid out cities paid out millions to George Floyd rioters? Do you mean by like donating to Black Lives Matters and stuff, or you're talking about something else? Yeah, it's daylight savings time. I'm not sure I'm completely on, but I feel pretty good today. I feel pretty rested today. I think that I got a really good night's rest because I had a pretty hard workout yesterday, man. Lawsuit settlements? Huh. Well, that might be something different. So, I saw somebody talking about this the other day, and it was something that I knew was a thing, but I hadn't considered how big of a deal it may actually play in situations like this. Basically, you have a company, let's say you have a company and the company did something wrong and somebody sues the company, okay? Do you let it go to trial? And maybe the company believes that they're likely to win, and maybe how much they would lose on that one ruling against them would be bad, but not like the end of the world, right? But the thing that they cannot handle is the precedent that it sets. Once one person has gotten a judgment against them, now it opens the door for everybody else to sue about a case like that. And because there was one case that was already very firmly resolved on that particular front, now everybody starts doing it, right? And so they will settle to avoid the precedent, right? So now I've been sitting back and thinking, like, how often is that actually affecting the outcome of things? Because it does seem like it does that. And so I could easily see some situations where cities would, you know, just take the settlement to avoid more trouble. One of the things that I saw yesterday that's like a small little footnote and a lot of people will ignore but kind of sounds significant to me was that Adam Schiff was being taken to court by this family with a little boy, suing him for some interaction that Schiff had with this boy. And he settled. He settled out of court for like it was a ridiculous amount. It was like $24 million or something like that. It was like a crazy amount. Couldn't believe it. And you got to wonder, like, what's going on there. And my first thought was like, well, Adam Schiff did something very, very naughty that he would not want the rest of the world to know about. But then I also kind of think about, well, but what about the precedent that it sets too? Like, would that encourage other people to come out and do, make accusations against them? Because that's what happened with Michael Jackson, right? Even though from what I can see, Michael Jackson was kind of unfairly treated. So maybe that's a plus in Adam. I don't know. The story is weird to me, though. The story is weird to me. The precedence of shifting of the portable document format he obviously looks like. What is with that? Why is there a look? I don't understand that.
Block by.
There's definitely a look. Oh, what? So first of all, I don't know why I reset my DOM a little bit higher, but we're back to like the center of the distribution that we had, and there was a really big order there at 08.5, and at the same time, I'm seeing the S&P 500 kind of move around here. I'm not seeing anything too terribly interesting in the dollar, so that's curious. But it is a higher low there in the treasuries potentially, so not that it matters, but some people might read things into that. I can't believe you read out portable document format. Well, you are a Redditor. The one thing that I still enjoy, there's two things that I still enjoy on Reddit. One is if you go into really, really technical subreddits, like the Linux subreddits and programmer subreddits, there's still good tech discussion. There's good stuff. You can go to the Linux subreddits and listen to people argue about why snaps are bad and why init.d is terrible, or we shouldn't be using init.d as a what do they call it? The loading manager or whatever they call it. It's just the most pedantic arguments. It's really fun stuff. I enjoy those though. But then the other one is whenever a pun chain starts, right? It doesn't happen very much anymore because people got sick of it and started downvoting them. But some of the pun chains were my favorite. I loved that sort of stuff. Those kind of, as you get older, you want to have humor that is funny and is still children appropriate. And so you go into, puns. That's fertile ground for an older, for dad jokes. I love it. Well, I don't want to use the actual word in case YouTube is listening and is like, well, it sounds like Seth is talking conspiracy stuff again. Maybe we should throttle his stream a little bit. But see, I already used the word cocaine in this stream, so maybe it doesn't matter. Okay, but still, it is weird to me. There's a broader phenomenon. Tim Pool's cat died. What? Wait, what? Okay. Can we have a moment of silence for Tim Pool's cat? Okay, that's enough. Why is it that certain identities that are they're not ethnic or genetic in origin, okay, but identities that they will have looks and accents to them. Okay, so forget about Adam Schiff. Let's move a little bit more politically correct. Why is there a gay accent? This is nobody knows, but it is definitely a thing, right? And then there's all these studies about it that the gay accent is a thing. Why is that? I don't get it. How does that come about? And there's a look like there is a lesbian look. There is. Okay, if you see a girl and she's all like edged out, probably much significantly more likely to be a lesbian, right? But why is it like that? Why do they have that? And it seems to me that you will get those sorts of things even for groups of people that are underground, don't want to be identified. What's with that? I used to do landscaping over the summer with my dad, and one time I was working with his business partner's brother in the field, and he was gay. I was 14, and I asked him why gay people talk the way he did, and he said, I actually don't know, we just do. Yeah. Like, my understanding is that this is a common conversation in the gay community. But there is, so like the thing is that there are some social explanations. I was just realizing I had that power meter up this whole time, and it shows a slight advantage of about 4,000 contracts to the buy side, but a lot of volume traded. Wow. Anyways, like there is definitely so like women have a way of talking, and like upper middle class women have a certain way of talking. And there's this whole thing, especially when you go into the UK, about how the way that you talk is supposed to say something about your class and things like that, right? So one could easily see how like that could arise as a way to identify, in-group, out-group sort of dynamics. But what doesn't make sense is that this seems to happen even when it's a group that doesn't want to be identified publicly. Like, gay people have had the accent even when it was, everybody was still in the closet. It's weird. It's weird. Lost my spot. Everything is, yeah. Well, you know what? Auction prediction. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's going to be a positive. But I'm a little less certain on this one than usual. You know what? Auctions are very difficult for me to predict. I don't have all of the information that I would really need to be able to predict the auctions. You work for a bank and stuff, they have ways of seeing, like guessing what the other dealers are going to be doing and stuff like that to know like what the demand is and everything. Having like a big piece of news like the CPI in front of an auction can definitely affect things. But with the way that this market has been holding, it seems like that they read the CPI as bad, but not the end of the world. I think that the auction will probably be viewed somewhat optimistically. So I don't even know if that means that there will be like a big tail or stop through on the auction. But I think that the end result of it will be that it was a pretty okay auction. I don't think that we'll get another one of those like dismal auctions. But I could be wrong. If we do get one of those dismal auctions, that could really shift things for the market, couldn't it? Because, they break the low off of the auction. Whew. That could definitely stop your S&P 500 rally, right? Anyways, I'm going to get going. I will see you guys tomorrow in the meantime. And a good trade. I haven't taken a trade in a while. I finally had an opportunity where I felt like I could take a live trade. It was really scary, but it did work out. We made 30 bucks, 35 bucks. Super happy. So good day. See you guys tomorrow.